Today's topic for the FAA Part 107 exam is the Certificate of Waiver process, a critical area the test will probe to ensure you know the absolute limits of your authority as a remote pilot. The exam will test your knowledge of which specific regulations in Part 107 can be waived, and just as importantly, which cannot. First, let's focus on the waivable sections as listed under Section 107.205. These include rules like Section 107.31, visual line-of-sight operations, and Section 107.29, which covers daylight operations. Although routine night flights are now allowed without a waiver if you have the proper anti-collision lighting, a waiver would still be needed for special cases, like a drone light show that requires turning those lights off. Other T-waivable rules are Section 107.39, Operation over people for drones that don't meet the category requirements, Section 107.25, Operation from a moving vehicle, and Section 107.35, Operating multiple small unmanned aircraft. You can also request a waiver for Section 107.51, which sets operating limitations like the 400-foot altitude ceiling and the 100-mile-per-hour speed limit. Now, for the most common exam trap, confusing a waiver with an airspace authorization. While Section 107.41, Operating in Controlled Airspace, is on the waivable list, routine, short-term access to controlled airspace is typically gained through a LAANC authorization, which is a much faster, near-real-time process. A waiver for airspace is for more complex or long-term operations not covered by LAANC. The exam we give you a scenario, like a single real estate shoot in Class D airspace, and the correct answer for permission would be LAANC, not a waiver. The application process itself is another tested concept. While the title mentions FAA Form 77112, this is an older paper form. For Part 107 operations, you must apply online through the FAA DroneZone portal. The core of your application is demonstrating an equivalent level of safety. You must provide a detailed risk mitigation plan explaining how your proposed operation will be just as safe as operating under the standard rule. The FAA states you should apply at least 90 days before you plan to fly, making last-minute waivers impossible, a fact the exam loves to test. Just as critical are the rules that can never be waived. The exam will try to trick you with scenarios that seem plausible but are strictly forbidden. You can never waive the 55-pound maximum takeoff weight. You also cannot waive the prohibition on careless or reckless operations under Section 107.23 or the rules against operating under the influence of drugs or alcohol. To help you remember these hard limits, use this mnemonic. You can't waive the WAD. That's weight over 55 pounds, alcohol/drugs, and dangerous, careless, reckless operations. For example, if a question describes a movie production needing to fly a 60-pound camera system and asks if a waiver is possible, the answer is an absolute no. Passing the exam requires you to know not just what a waiver is, but its practical application, its limitations, and how it differs from a routine LAANC authorization. For free practice questions, AI-powered explanations, and more exam prep tools, visit openexamprep.com. That's openexamprep, all one word, .com.